All right, guys. So once again, we gotta do a reaction video to what the cackling hands on The View are talking about, okay? Because they are treading into dangerous territory here, right? When it comes to how they're openly calling for people who they deem to be Russian propagandists to be investigated by the Department of Justice, and going as far as to also suggest that they should be arrested, which is basically just a modern day version of McCarthyism, okay? They're trying to McCarthy smear people, which refers to a campaign back during the early 1950s under Senator Joseph McCarthy to accuse and smear political opponents as communists, right? And therefore treasonous. Now, this was happening during the Red Scare when there was a whole lot of, anti-Russian propaganda going on out there, as people thought that a nuclear war was imminent, okay? And this worked. A lot of people lost their jobs and their livelihoods wrongly after being accused of being communists, okay? And this is a modern day version of that right now. Like, what is happening right now is McCarthyism 2.0, okay, in the 2020s. You are literally witnessing this, okay? As, again, these cackling hens on The View are basically going to call for people like Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson to be investigated by the government, potentially locked up and arrested simply for not going along with the mainstream liberal narrative. So with that being said, let's actually play the intro clip that they use from The View in order to set up their conversation about how Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard should be investigated for being Russian propagandists.
Democrats in Washington have told you have a patriotic duty to hate Vladimir Putin. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandate. Anything less than hatred for Putin is treason. Hating Putin has become the central purpose of America's foreign policy. Secret biolabs? Like the secret biolabs Ukraine definitely doesn't have? Ukraine has those? Yes, it does.
There are 25 to 30 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens. Now, like COVID, these pathogens know no borders. If they are inadvertently or purposely breached or compromised, they will quickly spread all throughout Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world, causing untold suffering and death.
So that is the clip that they use to set up this conversation that we're about to get into. But before we get into this conversation, I got to mention that Mitt Romney went after Tulsi Gabbard for making a claim that there are U.S.-funded bio labs or laboratories in Ukraine. Okay, he actually accused her of treason for making that statement. Now, Tulsi Gabbard actually clapped back at Mitt Romney with facts and evidence to support her claims and went as far as to actually call for Senator Mitt Romney to resign and apologize. Take a look.
Senator Romney, you've called me a treasonous liar simply for stating the fact that there are over 25 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens across the United States and the world. And therefore they must be secured so that we can prevent any new pandemics from occurring. Now, bizarrely, you claim that securing these labs, or even calling for securing these labs, is treasonous and will lead to a loss of life, when the exact opposite is obviously true. The spread of pathogens is what will cause the loss of life, not the prevention of such a spread. So, Senator Romney, please provide evidence that what I've said is not true and treasonous. And if you cannot, you should do the honorable thing. Apologize. Resign from the U.S. Senate. Evidence of the existence of these biolabs in Ukraine, their vulnerability, and therefore the need to take immediate action to secure them is beyond dispute. Just the other day, the State Department's Victoria Nuland acknowledged that these labs that contain dangerous pathogens exist in Ukraine in her testimony to the U.S. Senate.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
In a Pentagon fact sheet dated March 11th, there are numerous statements that both directly and indirectly confirm the existence of these biolabs. The United States, through BTRP, has invested approximately $200 million in Ukraine since 2005, supporting 46 Ukrainian laboratories, health facilities, and diagnostic sites.
Yeah, so Tulsi goes on to provide a plethora of facts and evidence, right, and supporting documentation to back up her claims that nobody has refuted, in my opinion. I haven't seen it yet, okay? The only thing I've seen is a bunch of fact checkers and mainstream liberal media saying what she's saying is not true, or either mischaracterizing what she's saying by saying that, oh, she's saying that Ukraine has bioweapons labs, like they're developing bioweapons, which is not what she's saying, okay? Yeah, it's a really silly conversation because the fact checkers don't have any evidence to actually prove that what she's saying is false, and everybody else is basically twisting what she's saying to say that she's saying that Ukraine has bioweapons labs, which is not what she's saying. She's just simply stating that there are biolabs in Ukraine that potentially are handling dangerous pathogens that, you know, if released into the environment, could be dangerous to the world. That's what she's saying. Doesn't mean that they can't potentially be used as a bioweapon, but doesn't mean that they're developing them with the intent to be used as a bioweapon. She never made that claim, but that's what people in the mainstream media and these calculating hens are acting like that she's saying, when she's clearly not saying that. Again, this is a modern day version of McCarthy smearing, and we're about to literally witness this right now on The Liberal View.
And look, but I think that's an incredibly relevant question. Yeah. And I think DOJ, in the same way that it is setting up a task force to investigate oligarchs, should look into people who are Russian propagandists and shilling for Putin. That's being, if you are a foreign asset to a dictator, it should be investigated. In fact, I remember when Tulsi Gabbard, and I even hate that we're discussing it because I think to myself, who is this woman? She's she's no longer in Congress. She's a failed presidential candidate. She only practically exists on Twitter. And
who are you? Right? Who are you, Ana Navarro? Who are you? Because you haven't done anything noteworthy. I mean, in fact, you're not even a real Republican. And your co-host actually just called you out about not being a real Republican.
I have a question.
Well, listen,
for
maybe for me it's a little personal because I took attacks for 4 years.
You're right.
From people who work in that White House.
You're still part of the Republican Party, and so are you.
Yes.
Which is bizarre to somebody like me. Well, if we're gonna talk real, let's talk real. Why are you, as a Latina, still part of the Republican Party? And why are you, having seen it firsthand, still part of the Republican
Trump's
Party?
Not the Republican Party.
Is he not?
He's not.
Let me find my card.
No, but I choose to believe
but I will answer you that.
80% of voters.
Let me answer that.
Yeah, I find it hilarious how this person comes up here and accuses people of being Russian assets. Okay, what evidence do you have that they're a Russian asset? Okay, to be a Russian asset, that literally means that you have to be owned by Russia, that they're being paid by Russia. What evidence do you have to support that claim? Okay, there's more evidence to support the claim of Joe Biden being an asset of Beijing than Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson being assets of the Kremlin, right? There's way more evidence of that, okay? But again, they would call that a conspiracy theory. But it's not a conspiracy theory to suggest that Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard are Russian assets simply because they're just stating what they believe to be facts supported by evidence that they have. Again, nobody has disputed the evidence, okay? And even the Undersecretary of State has come out and said, yes, there are in fact biolabs in Ukraine that we are concerned about that Russia could get their hands on and potentially use as bioweapons. She literally said that. But she's not being characterized as a Russian asset. I wonder why. I wonder why.
And the fact that we're giving her oxygen is what makes her relevant, that we're talking about her on Hot Topics. But on the other hand, how do you not call out something that is repeating false Russian propaganda?
What's false about it? Where's the evidence that it's false? Because she never said that there was a bioweapons lab there with the intent of making biological. She never made that claim, but that is what people are saying that she said, and she never said that. She never said that. Again, it's ridiculous. These people are literally coming out here and saying what they're being told to say. They're not saying what they actually have researched themselves and have listened to themselves and say, oh, you know what? This is what she's actually saying. They're not doing that. They're simply reading from a script, and it is very obvious what's going on here. This right here, guys, is what you call propaganda, okay? Basically, what they're saying is that if you go off the script even a little bit, if you're not 100% on board with the script, you know, you're 95, 90, 80% on board with the script, no. That is enough to be classified as a Russian asset, okay? You're a Russian asset. You're a communist, and you should probably be investigated by the Department of Justice. Now, here's the thing. All media outlets are propaganda, but there's a difference between propaganda like this that is supported by no facts and evidence than propaganda that is supported by facts and evidence. They literally have no facts and evidence to dispute what Tucker Carlson or Tulsi Gabbard is saying. They're literally just saying, no, they're just wrong without any real facts and evidence to prove what Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard is saying is wrong.
That has been brought down.
They used to arrest people for doing stuff like this. If they thought you were colluding with a Russian agent, if they thought you were putting out information or taking information and handing over to Russia.
So again, McCarthyism. Here's Whoopi, the woman that just a few weeks ago made absurd claims about the Holocaust, now basically suggesting that, hey, you know, they used to arrest people for saying stuff like this, right? Forget about that whole, you know, innocent till proven guilty thing, right? Forget about due process and, you know, all that and freedom of speech. You know, they used to arrest people back in the 1950s during the Red Scare for saying stuff like this. Maybe we should bring that back. I shouldn't even be laughing because it's not funny. It is not funny when you have mainstream media suggesting that people should be arrested for their freedom of speech. Saying, hey, you know, they used to arrest people for stuff like this, right? For, you know, saying the wrong things that the government don't like. Wow. Incredible.
They used to actually investigate stuff like this, and I guess now, you know, there seems to be no bars, and people are not being told to hate Putin. Putin doesn't need a reason to be hated.
No, people are actually literally being told to hate Putin. That doesn't mean that Putin doesn't have reasons to be hated. Obviously, the dude is a brutal dictator, okay? He's a bad guy, right? I would not classify him as a good guy. But like I've been saying recently, two things can be true at the same time. People don't really seem to understand this because, again, they get caught up in partisan politics and don't really want to see the nuance. That the world is not black and white, is actually gray. Putin can actually be a bad guy who deserves to be hated. And at the same time, mainstream media outlets can be telling people and influencing people to hate Putin for X, Y, and Z reason that really doesn't have anything to do with him as a person outside of the fact that, well, Russia's just supposed to be our eternal enemy, right? They're supposed to be our enemy forever, okay? Both of those things can be true at the same time. But again, people miss this nuance. And I just find it hilarious and fascinating how Whoopi, who, again, literally just a few weeks ago said the stupidest thing ever about the Holocaust that a lot of people found offensive, suggesting that, hey, you know, I guess they don't arrest people and investigate people for saying the wrong things anymore, okay? As if back then she probably would have been investigated for the things that she said about the Holocaust, okay? Because I can make an argument that she should have been investigated for that.
It's pretty much clear.
He started a war.
He started an unnecessary war
this is kind
that
of
nobody
like,
wanted.
isn't this
Again, how many wars had the United States started? We started a whole lot of wars that are unnecessary. Look at Iraq. Okay, y'all remember weapons of mass destruction that Saddam allegedly had? At first, they tried to blame 9/11 on Saddam. They tried to say Saddam was involved with 9/11. That's what they tried to say. They couldn't really make that stick, so they came up with a weapons of mass destruction thing, and the mainstream media ate it up. Okay, if you spoke out against the Iraq war and you say, hey, you know, I don't know about this. I don't think there's weapons of mass destruction here. I think there's something else going on here. You were smeared, okay? You were chastised. You might have lost your job. You were seen as a crackpot, a lunatic, insane, right? You were McCarthy smeared because of that. There has been times where the U.S. has been wrong on our reasons for starting a war. We started a war simply because we had other reasons outside of democracy and fighting for human rights to go and invade a country. Okay, it happens, right? It happens. So let's not sit here and act like, you know, the U.S. is completely innocent on invading countries for reasons that aren't necessarily just. Okay, I'm just saying.
This contributing to the death.
Anyways, like I said, man, again, this stuff is dangerous, right? This is truly the dangerous things in our society. When you have mainstream liberal talking heads, even if it's just calculating hands on the View, these people influence a good amount of this society, unfortunately, sadly. And people will start to believe over time that, hey, if you say anything outside of what the American media is telling you about what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, that you should be arrested, you should be investigated, that you might be an asset of the Kremlin, right? Again, further dividing our country and making it so there's only one source of information. There's only one narrative that people must believe. Doesn't matter whether or not it's true. Again, same thing happened with the Iraq War. And you think that we learned our lessons from our mistakes in the past in terms of swallowing the liberal media propaganda. You think we had learned to sit back and say, you know what, it's okay to ask questions. Asking questions doesn't necessarily mean that you're a propagandist of Saddam Hussein or Putin just because you're asking some questions, okay? But no, we haven't learned our lesson. It's the same old, right? But hey, like they say, man, history repeats itself. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.